Okay, just wanted to do a quick recap of the 5K and how it went today. We had a really good time. We had 21 runners, which I think is the most we've ever had, or maybe a tie for the most. It was a nice 50 degrees. We actually missed the rain by just a few minutes. It was right after we finished and people were leaving, it started to rain. And what's that? Panda? Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. There was a panda. And prizes and glory. So I'm just going to share a couple of pictures. Here's everyone kind of gathering around, waiting for Ben maybe to show up. We actually started without him, but he did catch up and came in third place. So if he had started with us, I think he would have won. So you'll notice here we have a panda hiding there, and we actually have some footage of the elusive panda running here. And you can see the handler trying to capture the panda. Yeah, so we had a good time. It was fun. One more thing I do want to point out, though, is we had a lot of swag and stuff there at the event. We do have a few more shirts, basically this one I'm wearing here. So we have like 4 or 5 more larges and a couple extra larges, or double XLs. So afterwards, just come up and see me. I'm just sitting up there by the door. Just come grab a shirt if you want one. It might be a race, so that's kind of the theme, though. And yeah, last of all, I just want to say thanks to Instructure, my employer, for sponsoring this. It was a lot of fun. We hope to do it again next year. A couple links up here. The first link, for those of you that participated or those who care, those are the results. So if you want to see what your time was, we got it up there. Also, check us out on GitHub and Instructure. We've got a lot of interesting projects we're doing. And thanks again to Ben and everyone else who helped. So, thanks, guys.
So it's story time. Very brief lightning talk. Oh, the places you'll code. You can code on some rocks. You can code on the docks. You can code on a boat. You can code with some goats. Actually, cows. You can code near a train. You can code on a plane. You can code when it's still. You can code when it's chill. You can code in the green. You can code by a stream. You can code by the light. You can code just before night. Don't just code in your lair. Write code everywhere. Last summer, when I was working on talks for Cascadia and other conferences, Ryan and I visited most of these places and wrote code at all of them. If you like to write code, if you love something, do it as many places as possible. It's awesome. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Ryan Florence, work with John, actually on his team at Instructure. I'm not a Ruby guy, I'm more of a JavaScript guy. Thank you. And but I wrote a whole bunch of Ruby a couple weeks ago. I am in charge of our CSS, and every day someone comes to me and asks me, how do I build a table to look like this? And tired of answering those questions and need to save everyone some time. So we built a thing called dress code. It's a Ruby gem, so you can just include it in your gem file. It's mostly a command line tool. So the way that it works is, in your project, you define a style guide.yaml, or name it whatever you want. And it's just got a few properties, like the glob to find the style sheets that you want to pull documentation out of, and then a couple other things, and let's see this thing happen. So if I'm going to put the mic down for a sec. So you just hand it the config file that you want, hit enter, and then it writes your style guide. Open this guy up. And I've got a style guide. So probably wondering, where did we get this style guide? If I go to my style sheets under boxes, you just mark up your CSS with that style guide and then the name of the component, and then give it a fence block for your HTML that makes it come to life. And over in dress code, it will not only show the demo, but it renders the demo. so that people can copy and paste this stuff and they know that it works. And it's also great for developing your CSS components because you just write your test case next to your CSS and just refresh the page. You can do custom templates, like here in our app in Canvas. I've got a custom template that actually just gets put into our app views folder, and then it gets rendered with our app, so we get all of our style sheets in there, all of our JavaScript behaviors and everything else. So really handy.
Yeah, but how do we get the table in green?
Inline styles, man.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Nick Howard. So I work on this project called Mira, in which I do a lot of JVM bytecode writing, and I wanted to practice my stuff. So I decided to make this calculator, and I call it the Oh God Why calculator, because I was like, you know, when you're using IRB as a calculator, you're using this really heavy interpreted language to do all this math, you know? So, and you know, like, you're pulling in this huge runtime when you're doing that, and that feels kind of silly to me. So I was like, well, I could make a compiled calculator. So what Oh God Why calculator is I take KPEG and I parse a calculation expression, and then I compile that to bytecode and then execute it. So the runner looks kind of like this. So basically, you know, you're in a loop, you print a prompt, you get the prompt, and then if someone types exit, you exit. And if otherwise, you take the expression and you compile it, and then you put the result of evaluating it. Yeah, so it's terrible. So it, you know, when you're running it, it looks kind of like this. So you know, you can say 1 + 1, and it doesn't have read line, so it doesn't do anything fancy. Apparently, 1 - 1 doesn't work. So how it works is KPEG gives you the ability to define a grammar and then say what you want it to do when the grammar happens. So like, if there's an integer, it pushes an integer onto a stack. If there's a term, an add, and a term, it puts an add operator onto the stack. It does the same thing with sub and what have you. So if you've ever written assembly before or written a compiler, it's kind of like that. And then there's a lot of tricky setup things because I'm using this library called ByteScript to write all of the bytecode. So basically I'm building a class file in memory and then writing all the bytes to it and then loading it and having JRuby execute it. And that's it.
Well, awesome. I was trying to think of a good idea to do during the hackathon in the vein of Ryan and Aaron Patterson's talk at RubyConf or RailsConf, the worst ideas ever. It's not quite approaching that level of awesomeness, but sort of. Okay. So that's me. That's where you can find me on the internet. That's what I look like on the internet. I work at that thing, which is the same thing that Aja works at, that she talked about yesterday, so I don't need to waste time with that. So, okay. So you guys are probably familiar with what array map does. You have an array, you pass a block to it, and it returns you a collection of calling that block on all the things. And you can also use this shorthand syntax. Ampersand, and then just a symbol of the method you want to call does the same thing. So what the fuck is that ampersand, right? So I come up with the idea a long time ago of getting rid of it. You know, if I could just pass a symbol to map, I'm passing the same amount of information, and actually I'm passing more information because instead of just this opaque blob of code that could have side effects and all sorts of things, I just want to tell it, do this on all the things and return it. So that seems good, right? Less typing. There's fewer hoops to jump through, possible optimizations, right? That's always good. And I pitched this idea to both Eric Hodel aka Dr. Brain, and Aaron Patterson, Tenderlove, at Seattle RB, and they were just both like, "That's the stupidest idea." So I wanted a word of warning. I haven't written any C code since I was in college, and then last night at like 2 a.m. And also, I've only like glanced at Ruby's C code and been incredibly confused. So I'm not like some kind of Ruby API expert. So this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like now. Okay, so it's very simple. It initializes an array and then does a for loop over it and then pushes onto the array the result of yielding all of the things. Very simple as far as C code goes. So unfortunately, my new version is too much code to put on one slide. You can look at it later if you write this down really quick. So this is the good part, okay? So I turned the RB RE collect into now taking arguments, because I didn't do that before. I use the RB scan args to actually see if there's anything in the arguments and put it into the op value. And then it is now a nested if-else, because those are awesome. And it's pretty much the same structure other than that, except you can see there I'm doing RB fun call, because it's a fun call. And surprising everyone, it actually worked. I couldn't believe it, but it happens. So, possible optimizations, right? Okay, so I wrote a benchmark. I have an array of 10 things, and I'm calling 2i on it because I figured, 2i on an integer, that should be pretty much a no-op, right? So the test at the bottom is commented out because I first ran it on the code before I did any modifications. And so the block syntax is about a second. toproc is slightly faster than that. So this is the same thing, except I uncommented the last line. This is after I compiled with my change in it. And look at that. If you need to map over an array of 10 things a million times, this is going to do it 0.3 of a second faster. So you're definitely going to want to apply this patch to the latest version of Ruby.
You sold me on 2 finger movements. Boom, done.
So yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So a couple gentlemen up here, I was eavesdropping before the lightning talks, and they said that all the lightning talks are about the people giving them. This is not really about me. I decided, rather than having lightning talk, I'd have a lightning call for help. So last night, after Ryan's aborted talk, and we followed to the hackathon and everything, I was sitting around, I've been thinking about how to deal with active record objects. And has anybody played with Virtus, the gem Virtus? It's rockin'. You should go check it out. It lets you include a module into your class, and you get model-like behavior without all that nasty table stuff. So let me show you where I started out. And I need help naming something. So naming, as we've heard in the last couple days, is hard. So what I want to be able to do is have a class and then have, so I'm dealing with an aggregate class. Has anybody read domain-driven design? I'm kind of thinking about aggregate classes here. And so I've got this top level root aggregate A, and I want to have this class inside of it that has a few fields on it, right? A few attributes. And then I want to be able to use a setter and a getter and have those values pass through to the underlying model. But the little B class, I also wanted to encapsulate the validations. So my eventual goal is that not only would I have class B include Virtus, which gives me the nice little attribute syntax, but then I'd have some validates, blah, blah, blah. Down below is sort of the syntax I wanted to be able to do. I wanted to be able to have the setter and getter on there. And this is sort of the code that I eventually want to have appear. Down below, it just basically says, pull the attributes off. It uses a property from Virtus attribute set, and it says, hey, just put these on the hash and pass them through to the model. If you set equal down on line 18, and if I get it, I just want to pull them out unless it's there already, or if it's there already. And this is kind of what I want to do, and this is where I need your help. Line 3, I don't know what to call this thing. So I have an aggregate class, class A on 5, but I don't know what to call it, and you'll notice on line 8, I'm still very vague about what I want to do here. So before we're done, before the 5 minutes is up, I just want you to shout out some names. Keep them clean. But you'll notice I just want to be able to use some block syntax, and I want line 8, I want that to be able to just go generate the class for me. I've already got this code working. This actually works just fine. At the risk of having you all see it, this is the way that I've got it wired up. I don't really need the class now. I can extend the module. This will go away, obviously, when I have the table underneath it. And this is the block syntax that I want to use. And this module does crazy things like just builds up an anonymous class, sets a constant. This is all very late night stuff. I'm sorry, maybe. If you see something in here you don't like, please correct me. And then I just set some instant variables and stuff, and I create the getter, use define method. There's a little bit of everything in here. I'm hoping that the project I'm on, everyone really loves it. But what would I call it? So class A is the aggregate. Ryan's waving his hand.
So the something something B part, why don't you call that name me?
Just name me?
Name me B, here's my stuff.
Okay. But does it say, well, what does that tell you it does? So, I think so. I was thinking these kinds of things, at the risk of showing my hand here. It's a lot of letters. Yeah, I felt the same thing, and I couldn't figure out, because aggregate's a noun, but it's also a verb, and this language sucks. The dictionary's no help. I even tried the British thesaurus. Aggie. I'm going to write that down. Aggro. I'm writing this stuff down. I'm pretty sure a few of the guys I work with are actually watching this right now. I'm sure they're groaning because they're going to have to see this when I'm done.
Call it active record base.
That is a scalable idea, my friend. Scalable. Any thought? Anybody else? Anybody got an idea? If I've got a thing called an aggregate, this A thing, and I've got stuff that lives inside of it, imagine at line 11, that's some class. And it's going to be called B, class B, or in this case, in the project it's in, 3 would be a quote, possibly, and 11 would be some dates in that quote. And these also, the fun part is I want to use a gem called Wicked to do like a wizard-based step thing and have each little class validate itself without having to use a silly state machine here.
Come together.
Come together? Is this a Beatles thing we're doing here? I'm writing this down. I think that, like I said, I think that's a scalable idea. And no other ideas? It's a thing. Don't worry about the name of the class, because I want to be, so here's the thing. I just want to be able to require something, extend it, right? And then just use it down there and have some syntax. So this could be like aggregate me or create aggregate, but it's not the aggregate, A is the aggregate, and I just couldn't figure out anything. I thought you guys could help. AR stub, that's, you're fixated on active record. I think you have feature envy. What's it? AG class. AG class? I'm writing it down. I think Aggie's probably the best. I think that's. Hot glue? Ooh, this is good. I like. Yeah, Texans are pretty litigious. This and that, I like that. A little, I had a buddy who used to call it shit and stuff. All right, I'm done with my time. I'm not going to bore you any longer. If you think of anything, I'm Elsquid on Twitter, ELSKWID. So please let me know. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. All right, let me get this sweet slide deck that I drew out in the lobby going here. My talk's hexagonal architecture with Rails, or hexagonal if you're from the other island. Anyway, this is really just an invitation to discussion. You can get me on Twitter at padwasabimasala or wherever else you can find me by that handle. And I just want to have like a little talk. Let's take a survey real quick. So raise your hands if your primary app is like this. You got a Rails app and a database, and that's what you got. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe half of the crowd. How about like this? Like you've done a little scaling, maybe you got a load balancer, it's the same app, you split it across some databases, a couple more people. Okay, and then maybe some of you work in a bigger shop, you got multi-app, Some of them are balanced, some of them aren't. Maybe a couple of databases, a few more people. How many of you doing like distributed stuff? You got like apps in a cloud. They talk to multiple services. You have multiple inputs for these apps. Okay, so this is a little shout out to some guys I used to work at. Where's Marcio? Hopefully they're watching online. Anyhow, the thing about Rails is when the only thing you have is a hammer, every app sometimes looks like a nail. And I really appreciated the last couple of talks, the one by Steven on how to break up your Rails app. And I don't want to really get into how to break up your Rails app, but more how do you build your app outside of Rails and then attach it to Rails when that's what you need to do. And so there's this thing called hexagonal architecture. Alistair Coburn wrote about it at this address. Also, there's a really good talk from Ruby Midwest 2011 called Architecture, the Lost Years by another Agile guy. Who shouted? Who's shouting? Yes, yes, a brother in arms. It's a really good talk on like how to put an app together. And so basically I just want to kind of like get people thinking about this so we can talk. The idea of hexagonal architecture is pretty simple. It's that your app really isn't a box, it's not a square, it's a hexagon. That the way your application ought to run should be completely independent from any other service that it's tied to. So it may persist to a database over Active Record. Sorry for trolling you the last time. Not everything should be Active Record, right? Kind of what this gets at is like you've got skinny models and fat, or skinny controllers and fat models, and frankly, I think that still sucks, and that there ought to be a better solution with like a skinny controller and a skinny model and something else, or maybe something's else, and that's kind of what this gets at is how can we design applications in a way that they can be tested and developed and implemented and completely detached from all of its input and output streams, right? Like you don't want your thing to always be tied to rack and action controller. Maybe you want to receive inputs from your command line, or maybe you want to pick stuff off of a queue. And when it comes time to change and to refactor, you want to be able to do it in a flexible way. And so if you're like building your mom's, blogging app or your grandma's, to-do list or something, you might not want to take your architecture this far, but if you're working on a large distributed system, it helps to have ways to kind of think about these components and build them together. And there's some people I found out on GitHub that are doing some interesting kind of things with this. But basically, I just wanted to kind of bring it up and say if this interests you, or if maybe you have some answers for me, or you want to just like gripe about Active Record together, we can all go get a drink later. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, it's let's talk. You can find me on Twitter. I'd love to hear your ideas. I'd love to just swap thoughts and see how we can build better applications.
All right, so today I'm going to talk about taking back your mental RAM, or the strategy to learn all the things. So I want to say thanks to Mike for mentioning my birthday yesterday while I was out taking a bathroom break. And thanks to Pat and all the organizers for putting on yet another great conference, and of course Matt's and everyone in the community who make our lives great. A little closer? Okay. So I feel great being here, and I am Tyler Bird. I am a husband, father, and engineer, and I work at Engineered. And what I'm going to talk about today is getting things done a little bit, and the concept that David Allen posits in there, that there's usually an inverse proportion to how much something is on your mind and how much is getting done, right? And there's the concept in there that we have something called mental RAM, okay? And it was a little bit what Bill was saying, that you can have maybe plus or minus 7 things in there. And so we can only have so much in there. So what he says is that we need to write it all down, kind of capture it in the Getting Things Done system, right? And so if we capture it all into the trusted system, then we are able to concentrate better. And if you are able to concentrate, then hopefully once you're able to concentrate, like I'm hopefully concentrating now and a little more getting into the flow, then that's what you're, then you get into the heightened state. And if has anybody here ever been into that flow state or know what flow is? So there's lots of information out there about flow, but research that if you're not familiar with it. But it sounds like a lot of you guys have read about it, and flow is something that you want to get into because it really feels good. It's when time stands still or time goes by really quickly. And the best advice I can give you is to try to know how to get back into it, pay attention how you got into it, and know how to get into it. So as developers, we're always constantly developing, right? And trying to be better developers. So how do we balance the backlog, you know, this mental RAM problem of so much stuff that we want to learn, right? And this change log, i.e. all the work that we're working on and the work that we've done. So we want to learn all these things, but there's really so many things we want to learn. So how do we balance this? So what I'm proposing is this tool that I've been working on called Ruby Community College. And it's a self-study social network. And what you do on it is you learn and you teach. So there are modules. The modules that we have right now are campus, library, and the dictionary. The campus module is take a course, leave a course. You are a consumer of courses, and by consuming courses, you take the content that other experts have created, right? And then you come in and you give back content that you're good at in the Ruby community, right? So that's giving back. And then, this one's supposed to disappear, whoops. But, so because it's self-guided, you're the instructor on Ruby Community College. And in the campus module, you also have the knowledge roadmap, which allows you to organize, rearrange, and review your plan of learning, of your learning career based on the courses that you're subscribed to, right? So the library module is not just where you go to check your Facebook statuses, but it's the curated collection of the vast array of amazing resources we have available out on the internet today. You know, Railscast, Peep Codes, all the awesome podcasts the Ruby Rogues have produced, blog articles, ebooks, etc. It doesn't actually contain these things in the library, but it contains the metadata, the valuable information about these things, and it has these ready to be added to curriculum and structured courses that you put in the campus. So that's in the collection of the library. You know, we will be curating that, and it's moderated by our faculty. So the last module is the dictionary. Sometimes the programming language is only half the battle. So you have to learn the concepts to become a good programmer, and so you've got to learn concepts and jargon and how to apply all that stuff. So the dictionary is intended to be the Webster's Developer Dictionary, and it can also be added to any course in the Ruby Community College. So who's working on the Ruby Community College? These are the developers that are currently working on it with me. We meet weekly at the West Jordan Library Mondays, and we meet Thursdays in the Google Hangout. Where can you find us? You can find us online. It's an open source project, so our code's available to fork. You can find us at Ruby Community College, and we also have a blog to follow some of our adventures. What do we need? I want you to merge. I want you to fork. We need some designers, because we're fairly Twitter bootstrappy right now. And that's a good thing, as Martha Stewart says. But we need coders, and we need moderators to come back. If we go back to our needs. Where did I lost my thing? Because I have power on my thing. Hello? Why do I not have? This is weird. Anyway. Where did my mouse go? Okay, it's coming back. It's going back. Almost there. Got it. If you want to contact me, here's my my contact information, and that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. I'm not sure this is going to be the most interesting talk for this audience, because I actually wrote this last year. We have a group in London called the London Girl Geek Dinners, and they did a meetup for the London Sci-Fi Convention. And it was all geek girls, but none of them were programmers. So they wanted somebody to come and they wanted 2 people to come and talk about the Raspberry Pi. But absolutely nobody could get their hands on a Raspberry Pi in May of last year. So there was nobody who could come and say, well, I've done this with a Raspberry Pi. So instead it was like, well, come and talk about computers for people who don't do computers. And this is there's an underlying diatribe to this, which is I think that we've broken the environment that allowed me to become a programmer and many other people of my generation. And this is going to be odd because I have to stand still because I have to click through these, which is not my happiest space. So, wild romance. This is my life in photos of computers. So this is going to be doubly dull. Right, I'm lucky. I was the blessed generation. There were these cheap home micros that suddenly appeared. First, you could build. I can remember machines you had to build yourself. And then you didn't have to build them, but they were so weak and anemic that nobody could put a bloated operating system on them. And they were just yours. Your parents didn't want them. They didn't want to know about them. They were scary. Your teachers didn't teach about them at school because schools in general, if they could afford them, they put them in physics labs or maths labs. They didn't put them in classes. So, there we go. This is the very first machine I ever programmed. This is a Research Machines 380Z, and it took me about 3 hours online to find a reasonable print of a photo of one. And this thing was amazing in the day. This had 32K of RAM, the one that I got to play with at school. This was more memory than I could conceive of. Yeah, a recurring theme of my life. And this is the very first computer I ever rode. Some of this will be very, very new to you because these are British computers. Our micro scene was so parallel to yours and so different. And this Oric 1, this is great. This was made by a used car dealership, as you'd call it, in Cambridge. They made 1,500 of them and went bankrupt. And it was fantastic. And I was heartbroken. I had it for a year. I was made to sell it so that I could buy get my next computer. And I didn't want to sell it. I loved it. I'd managed to track down an emulator for it, so I could actually, and the original programming manual, I got a PDF of it, and it's a lovely machine. This is the machine that got me from the age of 13, all the way through to university. It's an Amstrad. 48K of RAM, a green screen, a TV modulator, a cassette deck that was incredibly temperamental. And I spent about 4 years of my teens learning to program by deciphering somebody else's program. It was a program listing in 2 parts in Spaghetti Basic for a fourth interpreter. A badly implemented Fig fourth interpreter. And everything I know about computing today, I know because I sat in my bedroom doing that and then bunking off and playing Elite. These things were great because of this small feature set. there was nothing to them. They're machines that, as a kid, you can just pick up and you can break. And apart from a VIC-20, you could never actually really break one. I mean, you could blow a VIC-20 up. There was a memory port you could write to, and because it blew. There was a capacitor over this particular port that just went bang when a signal went through it too much. But I actually did know somebody who managed to blow their VIC-20 up that way. They did it to find out if it was true or an urban myth. It went bang. It's great. So I use this quote in so many different presentations because I don't know if any of you are familiar with Michael Moorcock. He's a British sci-fi writer who lives in Texas now. And he wrote a lot of the fiction that was my favorite reads when I was about 14. And I think this sums up the programmer's state more than anything else. I've read a lot of things by programmers who are writers that have never gotten as close to where I feel I am when I'm writing code. So I love to shove this in. But I'm going to admit the unadmissible. I love BASIC. I mean, Ruby is the BASIC of the 21st century. Now, I don't mean that in any kind of offensive way, and I definitely don't want to offend Mats by saying that, but it's got the same element to it. You can just get into it. You know, it's a language that doesn't get in your way. You know, and I'm going to show you what I wrote with BASIC, a commercial product. The very first commercial product I wrote in a higher level language after I gave up university. That. Right over here, you can't see it very clearly because I've just blagged it out of a publicity poster today. But that is a cockpit management system with navigation and everything. Fly your helicopter to your house. And that's written in VB3 and VB5. BASIC, don't diss it. It's an absolutely awesome language. I spent 8 years of my life writing things in BASIC that should never have been written in BASIC for money. So the trouble is computers decided they needed to get serious. This was the very first professional computer I had personal access to at home. It's an Apricot, so I don't know if they ever made it over to the US, but it's a 386, SX25 for that extra bang. It's got a nifty 3.5-inch floppy drive in it. I mean, this was serious tech in the day. I was still pissing around with VaxMates at uni when this was, my stepdad bought this, and it was just like, wow. And then people went and, oops, are we going to move? Yeah. Then people decided that instead of the lovely, lovely command line on all my old BASIC machines before, I had to live with DOS, which, okay, DOS 3.3 is my favorite DOS. It had some redeeming features that disappeared subsequently. Opinions that used to matter that don't anymore. And over here, I think this is Windows 2. 3? Windows 3, yeah. It's color. I've actually got a copy of Windows 1 lurking around somewhere that I managed to track down on an archive. And you boot it up, and it's like bright, primary 8 colors Windows, because it could only do, it's got an 8-color palette, that's it. It's brilliant. Now, at the same time that we were getting all professional and basically sticking machines in our houses that kids couldn't touch because they were too expensive, things were going a bit differently in universities. Oh, this is 4 years of my life. It should have been 3, but I had so much fun playing with the VAX 11780 over there that I fucked up my, we're on camera again, aren't we? I fucked up my degree the first time round and had to resit it, which was great because I got a free extra year of being the only person who knew how to program that damn machine in the corner. All my hacker buddies had all got kicked out that year. So this is great. 11780, it runs VMS. For those who don't know, that's the core principle stuff behind Windows NT. Microsoft stole a whole bunch of clever people from DEC because Windows 3 was so sucky, they needed a real operating system. And then they picked one that is one of the most perverse operating systems known to man. Yeah. Okay, so the terminals and stuff, they get you back to a command line. And anybody here's DevOps, you'll know why I like terminals and command lines. This is the first computer I owned that was a PC. I bought this because I needed to run a fluid dynamics simulation for my degree dissertation. And I couldn't afford a C compiler, because C compiler for DOS back then, you could do 32-bit compilation, but don't do that. I know we're running out of power. See, the easiest way to put a limit on your talk is to only have 6% battery power left. So we're going to be... It's okay. It should do about 9 minutes, I hope. No, it's run out. Well, I'm going to summarize, because this is actually on SlideShare anyway. Ah! Oh, come off it! I knew I should have stuck the extra battery, the second battery in before doing this. Okay, so let's go with... I told you not to turn off no matter what. The trouble with Macs is that they just won't believe you when you say, no, I really just want to burn the battery. I don't care. Just turn off when the batteries really run out. So this poor netbook is now going, I don't know what to do. I'm running both hyperthreads at 100% capacity. And we've got a nice little red flashing light. So, let's turn off everything. Let's turn off all of that. Let's turn off all of that. Now, just believe me, we need 4 more minutes. Okay, it's not going to come back. I got some lovely photos of stuff that followed on from that. I got photos of an Apple Newton, an Apple eMate, and various other attempts that people have that people have made at doing computers to try and re-engage kids. And there's a picture of you know, an OLPC, and they all suck. They completely suck. There's nothing about them that if I was 12 again, I'd want to touch. And then there's some pictures of a Raspberry Pi, including a picture of my Raspberry Pi called Aurak, in homage to a computer that was a very irascible, curmudgeonly character in a 70s BBC sci-fi series called Blake 7 that spent most of its time patronizing other computers and telling people that they were completely irrelevant. Please go and do the thing that kills you. Which my Raspberry Pi sort of, it's got the right case, it looks like. And then I was going to skip on to the final thing, which is everybody is now screaming, Raspberry Pi, Raspberry Pi. Maker culture's gone mad with it. If you go on eBay with £50, and you can spend £50, that's $75, and you can buy yourself something like this with a keyboard and a screen and a built-in Wi-Fi connection that is completely disposable because it costs $75, and you can give that to a kid, and you can stick hackety-hack on it, and they can have the same pleasure using Ruby that I had age 12. And that's my tale of digital passion, because I do it myself.
All right, folks. So this is a relatively quick talk called Developer Productivity, although based on what Ryan was talking about earlier, I want to call it anti-productivity, or perhaps with more ligatures. So what I'm here to talk about is wasted talent and wasted productivity. How many people in this room, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, but feel free if you don't want to, but earn 6 figures, $100,000 or more? Okay, thank you, brave volunteers. I'm going to wager that basically everybody in this room earns 6 figures or has the capacity to earn 6 figures within the next couple of years in their career. And if you don't, move out to Silicon Valley, where they're throwing 6 figures at kids coming right out of college. But there's companies that will spend all this money on salary and won't spend money or won't focus on making developers more productive. So I'm the founder of a company called CircleCI, and a lot of people think that we make hosted continuous integration and continuous deployment as a service, and that's kind of what we tell people we do. But behind the scenes, what we tell each other we do is that we sell productivity. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make developers a lot more productive. And this is kind of what this talk is about. So the talk is really in 2 parts. And the first part I call Hell is Other People. So the biggest productivity problem that you will ever have is the people who sit next to you at work. Your colleagues are the people who fuck you up every single day when you're trying to get shit done. So if you really want to be more productive, what you have to do is you need to affect your coworkers. So does this sound familiar to anybody? I get my best work done in the early morning before anyone arrives. All right? These quotes are from Peopleware, by the way, which you all should read, or get your managers to read. In one late evening, I can do 2 or 3 days worth of work. Anyone at the hackathon last night might have felt that. And this one is my personal favorite because I've worked in zoos. And at 6 p.m., things really quiet down, and you might actually be able to get some shit done. So the biggest impediment to this really is people around you disrupting you. They're talking, they're having conversations, they're having work conversations. But they're having work conversations beside you while you're trying to get code done. You can't get in the flow, you can't get shit done. Managers sometimes will put salespeople in the same open plan office as developers. And developers are trying to get in the flow, and sales guys are on the phone all day, every day. They're on Skype, they're talking loudly because that's their job. And the people who run companies, for God knows what reason, put people whose job it is to talk loudly next to people whose job it is not to be disturbed by people who talk loudly. And the worst part about this is, you see this sign? That's a little passive-aggressive, put that sign up. I've wanted to do that at offices where I worked at in the past. Just a little sign that says, shut the fuck up, people are trying to work here. And so what I try to do instead now is to give up on being passive-aggressive and just go straight for plain aggression. That's a lovely anecdote that you have about your holiday. Now, why don't you shut the fuck up so I can get home, get my work done, get home to my wife and my dog, and enjoy living my life instead of spending my life here listening to your lovely anecdotes. So the second group of people another version of these people who disrupt you are I think the technical term for them is selfish fuckers. So these are the people who actually know that you want quiet, and they know that you need to be in the zone, in the flow, to get work done, and still will talk around you. And perhaps they might be other developers, perhaps they might be you yourselves. It certainly was me in a previous life before I understood this. That you're having conversations around people who need concentration. So I used to work in this building in San Francisco where it had a weird policy. Every time developers push code to production, the speakers went off in the office with 6 seconds of their favorite song connected to a subwoofer that disrupted the entire open plan hardwood floor building. So it's just, it boggled my mind how this could happen, and when I complained, I got told no. They weren't my company, unfortunately, and there was nothing I could do about it. So fortunately, if you go with a policy like that, you'll quickly find that you're not actually pushing code to production all that often. So that problem kind of solves itself. So another problem is the interruptions you give to yourself. You turn on alerts, you turn on email alerts, you turn on IM alerts, mail alerts, your pocket vibrating whenever you get a text message. Turn all of this off. This damages your productivity and pulls you out of the zone for no great shakes at all. And another interruption that I'm going to talk about is roommates. So I'm a founder, and I have a couple of roommates, and they sometimes are interruptions. This is my first roommate. This is my wife. She is my favorite person in the world, but if I'm at home trying to code on a weekend, that's not the best way for me to get things done. This is my second roommate. This is Enzo. He likes to play tug of war with his chew toys, and is all in all a lovely, lovely dog. But animals and kids are kind of the worst for your productivity, because while you can kind of reason with your spouse and say, you know, I'm trying to get some stuff done, it takes a very, very hard man to tell his kids to shut the fuck up because he's got 3 more pomodoros to do before he can eat dinner this evening. Another enemy of productivity is the open plan office, and specifically the architects who decide that they keep building open plan offices for knowledge workers who need silence even though a cough can carry across the entire thing. Amen. So that's kind of my first point. Shut the fuck up is what you could call the first part of that talk. The second part of the talk is about how you can throw money at the problem. If you're a manager or a tech lead or a company owner, you can throw money at the problem of how much money your developers make. Or sorry, how much productivity your developers get. So a decent senior developer in San Francisco will earn $150,000 and will cost his company $180,000, maybe $190,000 when you take in tax and what, all that sort of thing. And that comes to about $8,000 or $9,000 a month. So the cost of office space in San Francisco is about $700 a month per developer. The cost of putting in a private office for every single developer in your company is $700 a month, more. So you can pay an extra $700 a month so that your $9,000 a month employee gets twice as much shit done. Raise your hand if you have a private office. 10% of the room. So another thing that's very easy productivity is lunch. Lunch costs you $15 a day, and it earns you 30 minutes per developer. 30 minutes that they're back at their desk earlier working. It's a little bit mercenary, but for every 16 developers you have, you get one for free, well, for $60K a year, which is absolute bargain. Another bargain that you throw money at the problem, upgrading your devs to the latest thing. If you have a MacBook, I had a MacBook from a year ago. This one has twice the RAM. It cost a few grand. Wasn't my money, but it led to me having significantly better productivity. Another one, and here's the shill. This is my company's stickers, and there's some on the table outside. Cloud productivity services. For $20 or $200 or $2,000, you can make your team significantly more productive with things like continuous integration. And this is the most sort of sacrilegious idea, which is in the old days, engineers at IBM had access to the secretarial pool. So they could get admins or secretaries to get their dry cleaning done or send flowers to their wives. They were all male at the time. And this seems now to people who don't even have testers and don't have QA departments, this seems like sacrilege or sort of supreme arrogance. But when I was a contractor, and I could measure my hourly rate and how much time it took for me to take my bike into the shop, I hired a college kid, and I paid him a fraction of that to go do it for me. I recommend you do the same. Secretaries cost $20 an hour. Engineers cost like 70 to 100. So that's it. Shut the fuck up, throw money at the problem, and ship more code faster. Thank you.